So let's talk about this new rule potentially, obviously reported on by Rivals. I think it's very intriguing. They said new, a concept that will allow recruits to sign early is being vetted, ESPN reports. The concept would allow recruits to sign early with schools upon accepting binding agreements that are set out on August 1st. Thoughts? Now, for me, I think this is very interesting. So what would that mean, right? So basically, you would have to sign a binding agreement that you're going to go to the school, right? So they're going to send it out to you. Let's say you obviously commit there right before the season starts. You have to sign the binding agreement. You're locked and loaded, right? And the interesting thing is if they're going to have any language around, let's say a recruit changes their mind, right? Let's say the binding agreement, for example. All right, y'all. Now, this is LaDainian Guyton, number one player in the 2027 class from Benedictine here in Georgia, all the way, obviously, out east in Savannah, right? He's expected to make $900,000 as a freshman, right? This is obviously the big news. This is an NIL package. It's on par with a Dylan Stewart, who continues to get contract increase. You guys can go to, obviously, On3, NIL, or Rivals. Have more details about this, but it goes up to like 1.2, 1.4, and I think 1.6 million that last year. But the reason I bring him up to get you guys to think just a little bit. So let's say a recruit goes and a school offers him $500,000 to come to their school. What if we get a situation where it's a Texas Tech or a Texas or one of those schools that has a lot of money offers him more money? Let's say, hey, come to our school, we're gonna pay you $1 million. Again, all hypotheticals, y'all. With this binding part of this agreement, my interesting thing is, will recruits be able to get out of the binding agreement? Because remember, guys, you had before, you can get out of a national letter of intent, right? You can just go call the school, the administration, whoever you need to talk to. Hey, release me from my national letter of intent. I'm no longer going here. So the interesting thing is, obviously, this is just a concept at the moment. Will they have the language in there where a recruit, once he signs, can obviously ask to leave or ask to get out of that initially signed contract? That's going to be something to watch here. But I will say, I do like the idea, right? Because then it's no nonsense. You sign the contract. It should obviously lessen some of the degree of kids flipping because you're almost being treated as a pro. Even though you're barely 18 years old or 17 years old, hitting your final season of high school football, you basically kind of showing them already what the industry is, which I think is pretty interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you have to uphold these things, performance-based incentives. Let's see if they'll have that also into it as well. Because remember, these schools are paying a lot of money for these freshmen. They have veterans on their roster. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to uphold certain stuff. You can't, oh, I'm not going to go to practice. You know, another stipulation, will that be in it as well? Have to attend all practices, right? Have to attend meet, which it should. I'm not saying it shouldn't, y'all. It should. But I'm just curious if this comes to light and they obviously do this concept, what will be all the stipulations in the contract for obviously recruits? And I agree, they should get paid. I know I'm all for that. But at the end of the day, what would they have to uphold, I think is the key part to kind of unpack here and see what's going to be obviously important there. But on the concept of it, I like it. I like it. You're making the player be responsible. You're making the player have to sign a contract. Same thing they're going to have to do when they go to college. Same thing they're going to have to do when they go to the NFL. It's no different anymore, you know. And I think you're prepping them early for what it is, and you have to play to a certain level. Or if you're not playing to a certain level, you can get cut, which is what we see now in the spring. See what you want. We'll see what happens with the transfer portal window. They only have just one. They've been talking and having discussions about it. But that's what the spring is for. Like, if you're not playing up to snuff, you cut, you got to move on, right? Because they only have a certain amount of roster spots now. It's not how it used to be. You'll have over 120 plus. Only have a certain amount of roster spots. And they only have a certain amount of the salary cap. So you're going to see teams make very interesting decisions with how they delegate their money, right? We know QBs are making about the most, $4 to $5 million. But every position is not going to make 900,000. Every position is not going to make upwards of $1 million. Some people ain't going to be getting paid. And it's all going to be about your production and your productivity on the field. So I think it's very interesting, man. But I would say I'm for the concept. I'm for the idea. I personally like it. But let me hear from y'all. What do you guys think of this potential concept coming into action? Obviously reported by ESPN. Nice report here, obviously from Rivals. These recruits were potentially having to sign on August 1st, right before the season starts, a binding agreement to the school they're going to potentially go to, that they're committed to. Are y'all for or y'all against? Let me know down in the comments.